inside of inside, a beauty that you cannot deny. Oh, I love the serengeti as I watch the sunrise. No matter where you're coming from, there's so much drink fast on. Africa, dear, Mama Africa. So much you look at, so much you can invest. Can't even look back. Africa is the best.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I am your host, Lizzabitty. And as you know, this past week we were supposed to have a guest from Madagascar. Where she is here. She is in the back waiting. For those of you who missed that live stream, I did do some facts about Madagascar. I want to go through some of those as well as put some points on the screen. And yes, it may be a repeat, but this is good information. Good information, all right? So, what you see on your screen now is some scenery from Madagascar, some facts here. Again, Madagascar is the world's fourth largest island. The world's fourth largest island. All right. Some of its wildlife includes lemurs and fossas. Yes. So thank you. They are also home to many luxury lodges. Many. Okay. And the people are called Malagasys. All right. It is a former French colony. A former French colony. Another good fact is many of their plants are used in the treatment of cancer. And last but not least, 2/3 of the world's vanilla fields can be found in Madagascar. So let me bring myself back onto the screen. So we're going to bring our guest on. And thank you for all those who are watching. Please remember to let's try to keep the likes up to the number of people who are watching. I appreciate you guys so much. So let's bring her in and we're going to get this thing started. Yes, we are. All right. Hello and welcome to the channel.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Let me try to adjust this so there's not so much glare.
Okay.
The thing is, my background is just not very interesting. I'm in my sewing room. Oh, there we go. Okay,
That's okay. Mine isn't interesting either, and I'm wearing a mask.
guys for week. I do a lot of volunteer work with 2 orphanages here, and one of my orphan kids was sick, and they called me, and I rushed her to the clinic, and we suspected malaria, and it was malaria, which kills a lot of people here every year. The good thing is, if you catch it early, it's totally treatable with antibiotics, and we caught it early, she's fine. But that just, threw things last week, couldn't be helped.
That's okay. Stuff happens.
Yeah.
We're not a monolith, and life takes over, and we do what we must. So I invited you today. When I first started this channel, I used to have a lot of visitors come on and talk about their time abroad, etc. And so I've never had someone on the channel who was in Madagascar. Now I've been to Madagascar 1900 years ago. You know I'm 2000 plus years old. So so I haven't been there for quite some time. So I have some series of questions, and of course, some of the guests that come on, they may have some questions as time goes on and the viewers increase. So as you will see across your screen, we will have some questions that will scroll like so, and then I'm going to let you speak and put the focus on you.
First question: How did I come to live in Madagascar? Thank you for asking this question. My last name is Lee, and I've been told I was a professional genealogist before I moved here. For many years, I had traced my family history. My Lees were supposedly malagasy. I have been told for generations we're malagasy. And so at the age of 60, living in the Bay Area, struggling just to keep my head above water because the Bay Area was so unbelievably unaffordable.
Mhm.
I decided it was time to sell my house, cash out my equity, and then what do? It's a one-way ticket because I could never get back in, you know. So I started looking places I wanted to live, and I definitely wanted to check out Africa. I had a whole list. I've got a list of like 12 different countries around the world that I wanted to live. Madagascar was on the list. I said, let me start with Madagascar since it's an island nation. I'll get that kind of out of the way. Then I'll experience that for a year or two, and then I'll go to the mainland and I can explore Ghana and Tanzania and Rwanda and all those other places. So I started looking at a way I could move to Madagascar on somebody else's dime. And I did a Google search for NGOs in Madagascar, and I got an alphabetical list. When I got to the P's and saw Peace Corps, I'm like, bing, because I had dreamt of joining the Peace Corps ever since I was 8 years old. For over 50 years, Peace Corps had always been in the back of my mind. And at the age of 60, the ancestors were like, okay, it's time. So I went ahead and I sent my application into Peace Corps. I sold my house, started packing, told everybody I was joining the Peace Corps. Hadn't even gotten a response back from them. I just knew it was going to happen. So Peace Corps, the Peace Corps, you get a chance, you get a choice. You can either say, send me anywhere, or you can list your 3 choices of where you'd like to serve. My 3 choices were Madagascar, Madagascar, and Madagascar. So they said, okay, you want to go to Madagascar? You go to Madagascar. So about a year later, I shipped out and fell in love with it. I was teaching English here, first in Majenga, which is a large city where I live now. And then a year later, they transferred me to a little tiny village called Mahambu, where there's no electricity, no running water. It was a beautiful village, but my heart was in Majenga. So when my service ended, I moved to Belize briefly for about 9 months. I hated Belize. I absolutely hated Belize. The insects there, people don't talk about the insects. The insects make your life miserable. And every day I was missing Madagascar. And so I went ahead and bought the ticket and came back. 9 months later, I was back. And now I am what we call Misuchu Renunu. I'm drinking milk, which means I'm retired here. And my retirement means that I'm doing a lot of volunteer work with orphanages. I go around town literally on a daily basis looking for needy dogs and cats. I educate their owners. I bring the vets out to give them shots, to give the ladies Depo-Provera shots to keep them from getting pregnant, because I cannot spay or neuter. It's just not affordable. So every twice a year they give the and so partly because my Lee ancestry, partly because the Peace Corps was paying for it, and thirdly because Madagascar had always been, you know, part of my family history. So I love it here. Oh my God, I love it here so much. I love Madagascar.
So I have a
Did that
side.
did
It
that answer?
does. It does. It does. I have a couple side questions.
Okay.
So when we talk about the language of Madagascar and them being a French colony, so of course now before you got into the Peace Corps, were you fluent in French then, or how did that
No, no,
come
no.
about for you?
I spoke no French, and I refused to speak French. And I
Oh, wow.
refused to speak French, even though they use French in commerce. When you go to pay for something, they always give it to you in French. I said, no, I'm in malagasy. I refuse because I refuse to speak the language of the enslaver. That's just my personal protest. The 3 languages in Madagascar are French, English, and Malagasy. So Tengasizao, I speak Malagasy. I don't speak it really well, and if people speak slowly, I can actually understand them. But because of COVID, I had to stop my tutor. But we're supposedly COVID free now. Um, I actually went out today for the first time without a mask. But now that our borders have reopened and there are new variants out there, I'm going to start wearing the mask again because it's just not worth. I'm fully vaccinated. I got 2 AstraZeneca shots, but the language in parts of Madagascar, there's a lot of French spoken, but in most of the country, there's very little French spoken except in commerce when you go to pay for something. The numbers. Other than that, Tengasi, Miteni Malagasy or Tengasi. And so
Okay.
when people see me struggling to Tengasi, they're like, oh, Tengasi now. And they start, pat me on the back and everything. We have some great conversations. Sometimes I think that I'm saying one thing, but they're hearing something else. It's a
Yes.
constant. Malagasy is a hard language
Yes.
because the sentence structure is opposite. In English, we start with the subject, the verb, and the object. So Lisa eats rice.
Mm-hmm.
But in Malagasy, it's VOS, verb, object, subject. So eat rice, Lisa. So when I first came here, in the first 6 weeks Peace Corps is teaching you nothing but language. I'm so busy trying to translate words, thinking it's like Spanish or German and some of the other languages that I know. And this is just going to plug the words in. I totally missed the part about the sentence structure. So then I start trying to communicate, and you got to start with that verb. And if I'm busy translating chair or rice or something and I have no verb, I can't communicate. Oh my God.
It's interesting that you say so. The time that I was in Madagascar, yes, I was exposed to French and, of course, the indigenous language,
Right.
and I found, of course, both of them to be hard. Now, here's the thing that you did speak about is how the structure of the grammar is. I'm a person. I'm fluent in American Sign Language, and the way that most deaf people think, they don't think in a linear path in terms of how you speak. And so it was interesting when someone pointed out something similar to what you said about the structure of how they speak.
Right.
It
Right.
actually goes hand in hand with how anyone who is versed in sign language, them signing, because deaf people, they leave out articles and all this stuff when it doesn't matter where they are. This is how they speak. So it's interesting that you say that. Oh, but that was great. That was great. That was great. Okay, let us proceed on. Question number 2 is
Describe your
on this.
lifestyle, your day-to-day life, cost of living, healthcare. Oh my God. Okay. My lifestyle. I live in an upscale apartment. Um, I've got a massive 2-bedroom apartment. I've got 3 verandas, an amazing view of different sides of town. Um, and this apartment cost me about $340 US. And I'm living on my Social Security, which is less than $2,000 a month. I kid you not. I'm living on less than $1,000 a month, everything. And so the rest of the money for my Social Security, I'm able to just give it away. So I do a lot of work, as I said, with orphanages and with animals, kids and critters. And so a friend of mine just graduated from college. He needed a smartphone. Mama Lisa, that's what they call me, Mama Lisa. I can buy him a smartphone. I can afford to be helpful to people because it doesn't take a lot to go a long way. The cost of living here is so cheap. The only thing that's expensive here is internet. I'm paying about $60 US for internet, which is high by Malagasy standards. But before G5 hit Africa, it was just before Madagascar had the fastest speeds in all of Africa. So it's still pretty fast and it's reliable. So I pay $60 a month for internet. But my utilities, my water and my electricity is like $15 a month combined. Food is extremely cheap. Travel is cheap. Everything. It's just, I put some posts on my Facebook page recently what things cost. I went on, got a couple of melons and got a French baguette and got some things that this is 12 cents. This is 13 cents. This is 17 cents. It's just an amazing thing. So day to day, on Mondays and Thursdays, I make this big 3 pots of like what I call goulash, rice, fresh fish, maybe some chicken, some boiled eggs, some canned dog food. I mix it all together, make these 3 baskets, and then I put them in these plastic containers, and I go around town feeding needy dogs. I have a whole schedule of dogs that I see. And these are dogs that I'm working with their owners to make sure that they're being treated well. And as the dogs, some of them are literally skeletal. Like one I saw this morning, I call a skeletal dog. I don't know how this dog is still alive. But after a couple of weeks of getting these twice weekly meals that are just packed with protein, the dogs start to fatten up. Then I take them off the list and I add another dog in. And then I may go back and see them like once a month, bring them some treats just to make sure they're still doing well. That's on Mondays and Thursdays. I teach arts and crafts at one of the orphanages. I'm getting ready to start arts and crafts at the second orphanage. I just, the beach is maybe a 10-minute bus ride from here. And even though the beaches on the East Coast are much better than the ones on the West, we've got some decent beaches here. And for someone who loves to swim, um, there's always something to do here. Biking, going, if you want to go out, there's lots of clubs. You can go down to the what we call the Bord de la Mer, the board, and they have all these ladies set up Benihana style, where you have the U-shaped set up with the ladies sitting there cooking, and then people sit around. And I go down there frequently. I can stuff myself. I can have these brochettes with fish. I eat a little bit of fish. It's hard being vegan in Madagascar. We'll talk about that in a minute. With some mangahazu, which is cassava, and a tall drink for like $3, and I'm sitting there eating with both hands. It's just so frigging cheap. I love it here. I just wish I could get my kids to move here. My kids are grown and like, oh, mom, it's so far, blah, 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 but kids.
That's because they're accustomed to something. A lot of times for us, the unknown and that fear of the unknown can lead us not to take on different challenges that really would give us some great experiences. So that happens. They're not the first.
There's one part of this question I didn't answer: healthcare.
Yes.
I think I told you yesterday I was hit by a Bajaj crossing the street. Bajaj is a tuk-tuk, the little three-wheel tuk-tuk. And my elbow, I had like a basket on my shoulder, and I had my hand up, and when he hit me from behind, my elbow broke his windshield and knocked me to the ground. And it all happened so fast. I'm 65 years old. I don't need to be bouncing around on asphalt any more than I have to. And so the people were standing around. A woman who actually spoke quite good English got me to the clinic, which is literally right around the corner. And they treated the wound, and I think I'm fine. I'm like, yeah, I can twist, I can turn, I'm good. But within maybe a half an hour, I'm starting to notice my right leg is really sore. I've got a groin injury. I cannot lift my right leg. I can wiggle my toes and my foot, but if I have to lift it, I can't do it. I just can't do it right now. So the point is, we decided to go back to the clinic and said, we need some x-rays. Well, they don't have an x-ray machine. Go to this other clinic. Well, their x-ray machine was broken. Okay, we'll go to this other clinic. Well, their x-ray machine is broken too. We'll go to this hospital. Well, they had an x-ray machine, but it doesn't work very well. So the films were just all black. So we're like, this is crazy. The thing was, I was relying on my friends to find me public healthcare solutions. And I know better, because in Madagascar, the key for an expat is private healthcare, private clinics, private doctors, private hospitals. As I said, everything is super cheap. You can afford to go private. So today, I got up, and my girlfriend Olivia picked me up, and we went to the Peace Corps approved Espace Medical, which is a private clinic / hospital. They had the x-ray machines, they had everything. She did a full workup. I had a sore rib. She just x-rayed me from head to toe. And nothing's broken, just a lot of tissue, soft tissue damage. I'm gonna probably be on crutches for maybe a couple weeks to let this leg heal. But the point is, after all these x-rays and a doctor's exam and all my meds today, my total bill was $32 US. So people said, well, do you have insurance? Don't need it. I'm living on less than $1,000 a month. And if I get hit by a car, it's going to cost me less than $100. So you understand my point?
I do.
No matter where you go in Madagascar, there are private clinics and hospitals. And that's what I always tell people: stay private, don't deal with the public. I mean, I go to the public for like maybe a pap smear, simple stuff. But something like this where I need, I've been injured, I may have internal damages, I need a highly trained physician, I'm going private. Mazava? I'm sorry. Mazava's malagasy means, do you understand? So, okay, got it.
Gotcha.
I hope I answered.
Well, I wanted to get in depth, but I guess, or maybe you answered that when you talked about if you had some internal damage or something. But as you know, many of the Black Americans are wanting to move onto the continent, and their biggest issue is health care. A lot of questions that come up, even when I have clients, it's the same thing. It's the fact of the health care. Some of them may have chronic health conditions, let's say Crohn's, diabetes. Is it easy to access medications there? Have you run into any issues with that, Lisa?
That's an excellent question. When people ask me about that, I guess I preface it by, see, I'm 65 and I intend to live at least another 55 years. That's my plan.
Yes.
Yes. So that means that I have to work very hard to stay healthy. I eat a very good diet. I cut out all added sugars. I don't drink anymore. I do meditation and yoga every day. I gave my bicycle away to a guy who was really in need. And then after our rainy season is done, because the rainy season starts next month, I'll get another bike because, you know, biking is great exercise. The point is I work hard to stay healthy so I don't have to access the healthcare system any more than the need be. If I haven't done that and I've got diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, don't come to Africa. I mean, you can come to South Africa, you can come to Nigeria. You know, they've got maybe the healthcare facilities to deal with it. But if you haven't taken care of yourself, stay the fuck in the United States. Don't come here because it's not going to give you the satisfaction that you're looking for. I'm just being honest, okay? Now, that said, medications, no prescriptions needed. You can get anything you want, and it's super cheap. Super, super cheap. Every month I go, and because of COVID, I'm taking all these like vitamin D3 and all these supplements to keep my immunity up. And I have my allergy medicines, and I have my nasal rinse and all this other stuff. Maybe I'm spending maybe 220,000 RARE for this whole bag of stuff. And that's maybe about $30. So I tell people, you can get anything you need here. And it's extremely affordable. But if you've got chronic health issues that cause you to need to see a doctor on a frequent basis, I wouldn't recommend Africa at all. I just really wouldn't. I'm sorry. I just wouldn't.
No. Actually, I appreciate your candidness, and I know some vegans as well. And there's a couple here. Brian got his like their wife. They're also on YouTube. But I appreciate your candor, just in terms of living holistically and doing self healing outside of having chronic illness, which is what we're used to in the West. The
Right.
West has perpetuated all of these diseases to make money. That's what it's
Right.
about. Now, people
They
don't
get
like hearing that, but that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, myself, I talk about myself having IBS for years, even when before they had a name for it,
Right.
and suffering, not knowing what it is. But I attribute that even now as a 47-year-old, I attribute it to the food supply. I
Mm-hmm.
attribute it to the food supply. And so I understand. We want you to be candid. The listeners and audience and replayers need your candidness. So no, we're not going to apologize for you being honest, Lisa, at all. At all. All right, let's go to the next question here.
What are some
Oh, I'm
obstacles?
sorry. I think I skipped one. I'm sorry. I think I skipped one. Here we go.
Okay. Oh, okay. What would you say Madagascar is welcoming to those in the diaspora? Absolutely, especially English speakers. I have a cadre of people that are surrounding me. When word got out yesterday that Mama Lisa was hit by a Bajaj, I was inundated by phone calls and messages and people like, Mama Lisa, what do you need? What can we do? So many people that are just got my back no matter what. My road dogs, my ride or die. These are people that are English speakers who appreciate having a native English speaker, a Black woman who basically has abandoned or escaped the United States and has chosen Madagascar as a place where she wants to spend the rest of her life. They respect that. They admire it. They're like, oh my God, I want to go to the US. I said, no, you don't. They're hunting Black folks. You don't want to go there. The racism, you can't escape it. Stay away from the United States. You're so much better off here. They appreciate the fact that I'm teaching arts and crafts, that I'm teaching English, that I'm going around. When the police officer came to take the report yesterday, and you got the owner of the Bajaj and his wife, just an awful couple. They're like, we want you to pay for it. They wanted me to pay for the busted windshield that got busted when the guy ran into me, okay? So the police officer's like, wait, that's Mama Lisa. We know who she is. Do you know what she does? She goes all around the community helping people. And first of all, the Bajaj driver was in the wrong when he hit her in the first place. Secondly, he didn't call the police. Third, he had a passenger in the car who was a witness and he let the person go. Fourth, blah, 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 blah. So my point is the police were even on my side. And I'm not a native. I'm a legal resident, but I'm not a native. So yeah, they're very welcoming. Absolutely. With open arms. Please just come. Trying to stuff in the camera.
It's awesome to hear you say that, because when we think about the diaspora coming onto the continent, Madagascar is never in the realm. Madagascar is never even on the list. And I don't know if people really consider. I'm not sure why. I can't say. I mean, I don't consider it to be a remote place. It's an island, sits off like the Seychelles, Comoros, etc. So I'm not sure. But for those of you who are watching, if Madagascar is on your list and you have a heart's desire to visit there, yes, Lizzabitty has been there once. About 2,000 years ago. And yes,
years keep growing every time you mention
yes, it keeps growing, Lisa. And so,
Madagascar is, I say it's the place where magic is born. And when you look at Madagascar, what do you see? The first thing you say, it's one of the poorest nations on the planet. And so everything about Madagascar, its value is judged by its gross national product. They say, oh, it's so poor, so poor, so poor. Well, the great thing about living in a poor nation is, number one, the cost of living is extremely low. Number two, the quality of life is extremely high. And number three, small things go a long way. You can do so little to change someone's life, countless lives in magnanimous ways, if that's what you want to do. And if you're like me and you want to live the rest of your life being in service to others, I can't think of a better place than Madagascar. If you just want to hang out on the beaches and the party life, we've got that too. If you'd rather hang out on the East Coast, where we got a lot of the vanilla growing, that's a whole nother issue. And then we've got the South part, which is where the drought and the famine is going and the people are dying. I cannot publicly comment about that because I'm not a citizen yet. But the situation could have been handled better by the government. That's all I'll say. Okay. I don't know where this went in terms of the question, but I hope I answered it.
Yes, that's fine. And since you're talking about that, I have a question later in the interview. Can you talk about since you're talking about being a citizen, etc.? What is that process like? Getting residency visas, etc. Can you talk about that, Lisa, please? Don't laugh. This is the good stuff that the people are going to want to know.
I want to
Don't
cry.
cry. Don't cry.
Oh
We want
God.
your honesty. We want the honesty.
I've got a video about this on my YouTube channel, Malagasy Lisa. Oh my God. The visa process. It just takes time. Like everything else in most of Africa, don't expect things to move quickly. Expect corruption, expect extortion, expect people to charge you for things that they shouldn't charge you for. I learned the hard way the first time, but then I got a champion on my side, the mother of my Peace Corps language instructor who actually works in immigration, and now she handles everything. And so when people come over that want to become a resident, I said, hey, I got you, because I got this person that not only does she know what she's doing, but she's honest. She'll get you through. She'll cut through all the red tape and we're good. But without it, for example, in order to get you come over with a transformable visa, because I'm planning to retire. So retirement visa. So you come over on a 90-day visa that they can transform into a retirement visa. Okay, so the thing is, you need to have a certificate of residence in order to apply for the visa. But in order to get the certificate of residence, you have to have a bank account. And in order to get the bank account, You have to have a certificate of residence. So it's going back and forth. So I'm like going back and forth for days. So finally, I went to the bank with a friend of mine. No, I went by myself. No, I went with a friend of mine. He's a translator. And she said, no, we can't do it. And she said, in order to open up an account for you, you cannot do it in malagasy currency. You have to do it in US dollars or French francs or euros. And then we will convert it into RAR. So where am I going to get all this US cash from? Because all the ATM machines dispense in malagasy currency.
Correct.
So finally, I'm literally start crying. And she's like, because the Malagasy people don't cry. They don't make any sound during sex. They don't make any sound during childbirth. They don't cry. It's just the stoicism of the Malagasy. So she sees this American lady crying. She's like, what the hell? So on a lark, I pulled out this old check that I had folded in my wallet from Peace Corps days. I said, is there any chance this account is still open? She says, no, this couldn't be. And I said, well, she checked. She's like, my Peace Corps account was still open. And thank God for that. She was able to give me my certificate. I was able to take that account back over, get my certificate ready, get my visa. And if I didn't have that, then I would have had to go through all this trouble to find someone to convert Ari into dollars or francs or euros, then take that to the bank, open an account so they can transfer. It's
So it's a lot of bureaucracy is what you're saying. And for certain things. I got you.
It's crazy. But as I said, if anybody, like a friend of mine is moving here in February, and he was saying that there's these companies in the U.S. that want to take care of his visa. I said, don't do it. I said, if you plan to retire, you can only get your visa through the embassy in D.C. Don't pay these other companies because they're going to rip you off. They're going to get you the wrong kind of visa. It won't be transferable, and you will have to leave in 6 months. So I'm helping people. So if people want serious about Madagascar, they can always contact me. And now that I've gone through it,
right now we have people asking questions, but I wanted you to explicitly state how long you've been in Madagascar. You talked about going back and forth between when you went there first and go to Belize, etc.
Okay. I came here in 2017. Mm-hmm. Peace Corps went through 2019. Then I left, went to Belize in 2019, and I was back here in 2020. So between 2017 and 2021, that's 4 years. So for the most part, I've been here for the most of 4 years. Does that answer the question?
It does. Now, you talked about the banking situation, but what are some other obstacles that you may have faced?
Well, the biggest obstacle besides the language is the sex, because sex here is terrible. And for someone who's a very sexual person like I used to be, the Malagasy culture is that the men get in, get off, and get out as quickly as possible. That's what sex is all about. Women are not taught that they should even expect any pleasure. Female orgasms is something that is unheard of. Men are not taught to even think about pleasing the woman. So I'm one of these people, I'd rather have no sex than bad sex. So it's like, damn. I mean, damn.
Oh, I'm loving this interview, baby. The folks are gonna get their lives.
Wait. And on top of it, they don't make any sound during sex. You don't even hear them breathing. So this brother, when he stops moving, I'm like, is he taking a break? No, he's done. Girl.
Oh.
You're coming to Madagascar to get your groove on. Not here. See, my original plan was to come to Madagascar, and then I would go to Ghana for like 4 months out of the year, because Ghana has a large Black expat community. I figured I can hook up with some brothers from the States that know how to hang, get my car knocked out, come on back to Madagascar. But then COVID hit. Girl, it's been damn near 2 years. I'm like, damn. Girl, it's so rough.
Oh my
goodness. And then the Malagasy people don't like to talk about sex. So when I talk to some of my Malagasy girlfriends, I have never found a Malagasy woman who actually said she actually enjoys sex. It's something that they do.
Oh,
It's something that they have to do. But when I said sex should last for like hours. There should be, I mean, there's so many different ways that you can play with each other and explore each other's bodies. Like I talked to these men, I said, have you ever given your girlfriend head? You know, like, no. And when I told him, every time I get a pedicure, he said, oh, your toes look so nice. I said, yeah, I want to keep my toes kissable. They're like, huh? You know, they just get in, get off, and get out. That's all they know. It's tragic.
I am over here.
So for
I
someone
am
who likes to
laughing
do
inside.
sex, likes to talk about, girl, that's a biggest obstacle besides language. You know, and then I get young boys who like sending me dick pics and everything. I said, boy, send that shit home. You wouldn't know what to do with it if I gave it to you. You know, because it's the culture. They just don't know.
They don't, but you
So
know, I have to be honest with you.
class.
There's other Madagascar. You would not only find that in Madagascar. Trust me, there's other countries where that exists on the continent.
Mhm,
FYI. Now I'm not going to say
exactly.
their names so people want to be. Oh, it's saying Lizzabitty. No,
I
seek
know
it
it.
on your own.
Yes, I know what you're saying. I know it. And they sit on the, oh, I got a new boyfriend. I'm like, lying. I know it. You
That is
know, and
hilarious.
so I'm thinking that maybe if I could meet an older gentleman, because I don't like young boys, an older gentleman who's willing to let me teach him how to make love. You know, if I had a willing student, I'd be happy. You know, I'm like at this point, I don't want to teach nobody, but you know, I'd be happy to. I can teach you how to throw down if you're willing. So anybody out there, you know,
And
if you
by
got a good
throwdown doesn't mean cooking. Okay.
right, right.
She already
You
said
got
she's a vegan, so she doesn't
to
mean cooking. That is
so
hilarious. It is
that's a big
hilarious.
thing.
I love that,
So
though, Lisa. I
language
love the candor with it. I really do because you know,
that
as I'm a divorced person myself, so
okay.
I mean I can appreciate your honesty in that. I don't know how my journey will circle back, and maybe I'll be married again. I don't know. So that's something good to know. Something good to
Yes.
know. Now, in speaking, since you said that you traveled to Ghana, can you talk about this? How easy is it to travel to Madagascar?
It's easy, but it's a long trip. Okay, so you have two options basically. 10 hour, well, from San Francisco, because that's where I was living in the Bay Area. 10 hours to Paris, and then 10 more hours to Madagascar. That's 20 hours. Or 5 hours to JFK, 18 hours to South Africa, and then 3 more hours to Madagascar. That 18-hour flight from JFK to Johannesburg is brutal. Oh my God. That flight, who is that? That's Air, is that Air France? No, it's, South African Airways. It's so long. So the last time I came back, I broke it up 10 and 10, which was so much easier. Getting off in Paris for like an hour and then getting back on for another 10. Okay. Then when you get to Madagascar, you got to understand the roads are not the best. Even the national roads that we have a network, a system to take you all over the country, they're just basically one lane in each direction. And if you get stuck behind a truck, you can get stuck behind that truck for a while until you're trying to pass, whatever. And because it's not an election year, the roads are not being maintained. And so it can easily take, like between here and Tana, Majenga and Tana, at night, because there's less traffic at night. I can get there in like 8.5, 9 hours. During the day, it's like 10 to 11. Now it's between 12 and 15 hours because the roads have gotten so bad. There are regional airports everywhere, though. You can fly. I can fly. In fact, I flew down to town on my last trip and I took the bus back. You can fly pretty much everywhere you want to go. There may be 2 or 3 flights a week. There are regional airplanes. The fares can be somewhat high. They're still very affordable by American standards. So getting around Madagascar, you have options. But it's just a long way. I mean, there's just no two ways about it. It's just a long trip.
Okay, okay. Yeah, the flights are pretty long because that's how I was routed through South Africa on my
Hmm.
first and only visit there. So yeah, 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 yeah. So typically, I guess when you are traveling out, let's say on the continent, because you did mention you went to Ghana, I guess did you actually go straight, or are you giving yourself some time in South Africa before you actually make the final part of the trip, or how do you
Well,
do that?
before COVID, COVID's changed things. We don't have as many flights available now. So
Mm.
they would go through Addis Ababa, or I could go through Johannesburg. I could go through um, Nairobi, but I don't know what flights are available now. I think we're limited to, and then you go to Paris, of course. Um, Sometimes it's actually better to go to Paris and then come back down because of
Mhm.
the schedules. But COVID's changed a lot. In fact, Air Madagascar is struggling. Um, they're hoping to survive COVID. And now that our borders have just reopened last week, we're hoping they'll stay around. But a lot of airlines around the world are struggling because of COVID. So
Okay,
I really don't know the answer to that.
okay. That's fair enough. That's fair enough. All right, let's look at this question.
Industries that could thrive in Madagascar. The reason I'm pausing is because I'm
Hmm.
thinking about the infrastructure.
Okay.
And anything that you're going to do, you're going to have to transport, unless you're doing stuff online, which definitely thrives here. We do a lot of translation work. Um, but if you're thinking of industries, you're going to have to deal with the infrastructure and the bad roads.
Hmm.
Um, I think that one thing that I'm working on, I started building a halfway house for the kids who age out of the orphanages and have no place to live. I've
Mm.
got 2 cottages that are almost finished built, and with plans to build 2 more. But what we realize is that there are college students all over who are struggling just to pay the $200 per year annual tuition because, as I said, the cost of living is low. But if you're only making $3 a day and you got to pay $200 a year for tuition and transportation and food and everything, and then you got 6 or 7 kids, that $200 a year for that one child can be more than most families can afford. So one of my friends, who's a director at a university where I was teaching here until COVID, was telling me how many students she has that are struggling, that have to miss days of school in the college so they can go out and just do day labor just so they can buy food.
Hmm.
So I'm in the process of converting this halfway house cottage into free housing for these university students. And that's an industry that is much needed because it's very cheap to build housing here. It doesn't even have to have running water. People are used to even cooking outside with just charcoal. Um, just the basics, a roof over the head. But here in Majenga, we have electricity, we can have running water, all that stuff. But there's, handicrafts that people are making, baskets and things like that, that could be exported to other nations. Um, But one thing that Malagasy people do is they create jobs where there are no jobs. Like rainy season will be here next month. And you see these guys out with these funny looking machines. I don't know what they are. And they can just go around town fixing umbrellas. In the States, your umbrella breaks, what do? You throw it out and go and get another one. Not here. They'll go out and sit out there, sit up an umbrella, and they'll just sit there. And for 50 cents, 60 cents, a dollar maybe, they'll totally rebuild your umbrella for you. And that to me is incredibly what we call fetsy clever, because there's a need. And so the Malagasy people are great about finding broken down automobiles and vehicles that we would have junked years and decades ago are still on the road running because they find a way. So there's just no limit to the creativity of people here. They're limited more by the logistics and by the ability to finance their dreams. So if you were going to come in here and create an industry where you could help people realize their dreams, you could do a whole lot and change a whole lot of lives with very little money, because a little bit
Wow.
way. I know that's kind of esoteric. I haven't given you specific this, that, or other, but there's just so many opportunities, so many options here. It's limited by your imagination. Understand?
Understood.
Okay.
Of course. Now I do know, just because of the wildlife that's there and how, Madagascar sits, they're trying to expand ecotourism. I talked about this previously. That, when people come for ecotourism and learn about the nature and all that, that opens up new avenues. But I think when you talked about the roads um, being in such a bad condition, that may be a hindrance possibly as well.
But then that's part of the sell though. They sell it on, oh, and you go, these off-road vehicles, we can go anywhere. And so people, oh yeah, and you're bumping around. So, they love it. The roads are not a hindrance if you sell it right. Like, this is for the
True.
adventure.
Well, that's true. That is true. That is true. That is true.
The road
Many of
may not
many
be the best.
nations have thrived because of the marketing.
Right, right.
You're
Exactly.
right. You're absolutely correct. Okay, let's go on. Here we go.
Oh, how would people prepare themselves to move, live in Madagascar? The first thing is to understand that everything moves slowly here. Understand that no matter how long you live here, you will always be viewed as a wealthy American. No matter how, I'm living on less than $2,000 Social Security. Where could I live in the United States on that kind of money, if not with one of my kids? I couldn't. But here I can live like a queen. And so understanding that you will be blessed with the ability to help change countless lives. And if you come here thinking about how much good you can do, then please come. Please come. But if you want to just come in here for like sexual tourism, like a lot of these French guys come in, they get these girls like as young as 10 years old pregnant and then walk away. Sexual tourism is an issue here. Don't come. But there's just so many things you could do. Understand, you won't find any cast iron skillets here, and I still regret that I didn't bring mine. Our borders just opened up, so I'm going to have my daughter ship mine. But damn it to hell, I can't find a cast iron skillet. So there's certain things you can't find here that you're going to need to bring with you. And if you're interested, just contact me, malagasylisa.com. And I'm on Facebook as Malagasy Lisa. And I'll give you, some summarization of this stuff. Understand though that as an English speaker, you will be respected as long as you give respect. I would recommend that you hire a tutor when you get here to start learning the language and the culture, that you learn to respect that the Malagasy people are just different, like the way they honor the dead, moving the bones of Famandiana. After someone's dead, every 3 to 5 years, they dig up the bones and they rewrap them and they parade them around town, and all the relatives come from all around, and they hire a live band, and it's a big dance, and sometimes they'll bring a cow and they butcher the cow and everybody eats, and it's a big fun celebration to remember the beloved loved one. And then yesterday and today, the Day of the Dead. Well, they call it Day of the Dead in the United States and Mexico, but it's the same type of thing where they go out to the cemeteries and take flowers and decorate the graves. So the ancestors are revered here in several different ways. And just respecting the culture and enjoying the revelry of it. There's so many different types of events in us. And I hear the bands coming down the street because I've got these verandas on 3 different directions. And I hear the band coming like, oh, I wonder what the occasion is, whether it's a funeral or whatever. Just be prepared to be wowed and to accept that your life is changed now forever. It'll never be the same. And if you're expecting it to be the same in the United States, but in a different place, then don't come here.
Yes.
Like I struggled furnishing my apartment. I wanted to like I had my great bed built. I had this huge 2 meter round table with 12 chairs built for my dining room. I got this huge living dining room. But for the couch, Malagasy furniture, it's not comfortable. It's very, very sturdy, but it's like back is straight up, and the cushions are really hard, and it's not intended for you to kind of lounge out, watch TV. No, that's not for that. It's for like, sitting and talking. And I'm like, I want something more American. So I did search around, and I found some Malagasy furniture that's more westernized. And instead of buying furniture from Europe, which I can get here, I bought the Malagasy version of it. And I'm fine with that. So I'm accepting their part of the culture while still wanting to have the same kind of comforts and conveniences that I was accustomed to. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And I like the fact that you touched on the point as it pertains to people moving abroad as well as coming to Madagascar and then trying to emulate their American way of life. Now, what she did not say was to lose yourself, because people like to equate that with, I'm not going to lose who I am. No, that's not what she's saying. Some of this baggage, and I've said this on this channel many times, the people don't like me. See, I speak truth to power. But leave your trash from where you came from. Why are you carrying trash to other places? What kind of a trash person are you? I mean, really. So keep your mess where you are. Don't bring the mess elsewhere. And so people who are not and it could be just because you're a traveled person as well, but a lot of times, just as Americans, I'm speaking because I'm American, we get lost in the fact that we think that we're better than everybody, and we take that as a badge of honor when it's not.
Yeah, we do. And
Yes.
in actuality, we're really the ugly American,
Oh,
and
yes.
we don't
Yeah.
realize it. Oh, the other thing I would say, if you're planning to move here, is bring almost no clothes. You don't bring clothes, you don't bring shoes. You can get all that shit here. And the flip markets where you buy all this used clothing and shoes and linens and towels and rugs and toys and pillows and everything that's shipped in mass from the United States for little or nothing. It doesn't make sense to bring. I brought like a nice, like my Oaklandish heavy jacket because it's got the Oakland. I was living in Oakland. A couple of really treasured items I just love. Everything else in my closet I bought here. All my shoes. Underwear has been a challenge because it's all coming in from China. And I'm 140 pounds, but I wear a triple XL underpants because the Chinese sizes are so crazy.
Yes, they are. Yes,
The
they are.
this big. So bring the things that you can't get licensed, like cast iron skillet. There's certain spices and things that you can't get here that you bring with you, but don't bring a lot of clothing. If you have books or things that you're going to want to share with people, or you start a library, bring those. But travel light. I tell people leave. I talked to this woman. She's wanting to ship her car, all her furniture for like a 4-bedroom house. She has all this shit. I'm like, why? You come into a new country and you're bringing all your trash with you. Leave it behind. It makes So living here and embracing the Malagasy lifestyle makes my life so much more enjoyable. Oh my!
Yeah.
Then walking around saying, "Oh, that's that same table and chairs. I've had that for 20 years," and that's all. You don't want anything new. I mean, you don't want to try anything different. I mean, that's all you want.
Correct. Okay. So what about this one? Dispelling some myths and things about Madagascar. Because again, people hear things. Never been, but they hear things.
Um, I don't really know of any myths that
Okay.
I can comment about. Oh, the one myth is that Madagascar is nothing like those damn Madagascar movies. Okay,
Yes.
animated. We hate those fucking movies. Okay, and don't bring them, don't talk, don't mention, don't, there's no lines here. There are no alpha predators on Madagascar at all. There are no venomous snakes. This is a place where magic is born. This is a place where you can go out into the bush in any direction and not fear for your life, because there's no big cats or big thing going to try to eat you. Madagascar is peaceful. Madagascar is, some people call it the eighth continent, which I really love. It's because it's so diverse. You've got so many different, I think 18 different ethnic groups, so 18 different dialects. And you've got so many places and things to discover here. But I other than that Madagascar movie, I really can't think of any myths. I can't think of it. If someone can tell me about it, I can comment about it, but I can't think of any off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
Well, I can tell you something that's not a myth.
Okay.
The bugs.
No, go ahead. Let me hear what you're going to say about that.
Well, just in my visit, the size of like the caterpillars and things like that.
Well,
I don't necessarily have an aversion. Go ahead.
I really don't see those here. And see, that's my point. When I moved to Belize, nobody told me about those fucking sand fleas.
Oh, yes.
They're invisible. They bite like crazy. They can jump like 4 feet high. That's why people in Belize, you don't see them laying out on the beaches enjoying the beach, because the sand fleas are biting you. They're eating you. They have to go through every day raking the beach to try to stir up the sand flea eggs so they won't take root there. And those mosquitoes, they are so intense. Even though where I was living, the part of Belize I was living was not a malarial region, the mosquitoes were unbelievable. It was so hard to sleep at night. Here, yeah, there are a few mosquitoes. Hi, there's Joe, there's Fred, there's Sally, here and there. Even though we are a malarial country,
correct.
When I was Peace Corps, I was taking the anti-malaria prophylactic drugs every day. I don't do that anymore because they'll kill your liver. And as I said, like with my student last week, if you catch malaria early, it's treatable. And malaria always presents with a fever. So as soon as you get a fever, the first thing you think is malaria. And they got a self-test, you got malaria, you take the meds, you're going to be fine. So maybe the insects are bigger, but we really don't see them. Even when I lived out in Mahambu, which is out literally, a very, no electricity, no running water.
Yeah, that's more remote. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I had huge spiders.
Yeah.
And see, I don't mind. Spiders don't bother me. So I had put this one spider up. I said on my Facebook, it's a good thing I'm not afraid of spiders. And I told my cousin, don't look at my Facebook page because she's terrified. She would have just freaked out. Are amazingly big, but other than that, you really aren't going to be bothered by bugs and insects, as I said.
Yeah.
And for some of you who's terrified of snakes, no venomous snakes. So if you do see a snake, nothing here is going to kill you.
Okay.
You might get killed by a Dodge driver walking down the street and he comes hit you from behind, but and then watch damages. Oh my God.
Okay, so let's. I wanted to touch real quick when you talked about the prophylactics for malaria. I don't take it either. Even before I travel, I started taking my neem before I actually get on the continent. I don't take all that stuff. I just don't. I don't. And I'm not saying I'm the walking epitome of Mother Nature, because I do have my vices. But I'm no.
Well, I talked to other cats here, and they're basically like, "Are you planning to take this stuff for the rest of your life?" None of the locals take it. And as I said, malaria always presents with a fever. And if you get it, you treat it. It's when you don't treat it that you can die. I mean, malaria kills Peace Corps volunteers every year who, think, I don't have to take it because I live up in the highlands or whatever, which is stupid.
Right.
But I know I have a little basket. It's like a round tray on my bed where I keep like a pair of glasses. I keep my remotes for my fan and my air conditioning. I keep little stuff that I need during the night. And there's always a thermometer there. So if I wake up in the middle of the night with a night sweat, I'm checking my temp to see, is this a night sweat or is this a fever? And it's always been a night sweat, because I'm just aware that the fact that you need to be cognizant, if you're not taking the meds, that you can get, typhoid. And now we've
Exactly.
got the pneumonic plague and the bubonic plague that's been here like forever. So, but all this stuff always presents with a fever. So it won't sneak up on you. It's always going to let you know, hello, I'm here, I'm here.
Yes. Okay, we're gonna have two more questions, and then we're gonna have
Okay.
some questions from the audience. Okay, so the last one question is, can you talk about the weather and the seasons there?
Okay. The weather is opposite of, we are in the southern hemisphere, so we're in springtime now. Summer starts next month. And Majenga is either the hottest or the second hottest city in Madagascar. So it's always hot here, 365. And now it's getting really damn hot, which I love. I love hot weather. In Majenga, we don't really get seasons, but up on the highlands, because we're on the coast, but up on the highlands, where Tana and a lot of the rest of the country, oh yeah, you definitely get the seasons. You get the cold and the drizzle and you get rains. And then you even see the trees turning, the beautiful fall colors, but that happens in spring here. So it's kind of different, but yeah, we definitely get seasons. And the weather in Majenga, we get all of our rain from like late November through March, and that's it for the year, for the rest of the year. But that's Majenga, because we're on the coast. We're on the west coast. Mm-hmm. On the east coast and the highlands, they get rain and stuff all year long. So Majenga for me was a perfect climate, because I like hot weather. And the rains, everything turns green and plush, and then the rains are gone, and it's just a wonderful town.
Okay. Okay. And our final question for me, when you talked about resident visas, but what about land ownership? Because most of the diaspora, they want to know about the land process in these countries. Is it the land lease? Do you own it outright, as in freehold, etc.? Do you know anything about the land process in Madagascar?
You cannot own land if you are not a citizen.
Okay.
And it takes at least 5 years to become a citizen. I've been here most of 4 years, but my clock didn't start ticking until I got back here last year. Those Peace Corps years didn't count. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I can't even apply to become a dual citizen for another few years. Mm-hmm. The halfway house that I'm building, I went to the director of the school where I used to teach, just not far from here in Majenga, and said, hey, this is what we want to do. He's got all this land. Can we build this on your land? Basically giving him a cottage. Because when we're done with it, when we're not using it, it's on his land. He essentially owns it. And for us, that's fine. After owning homes for decades in the United States, I don't ever want to own anything again. I don't need to own anything. So where a lot of people want to buy up land and want to build this, that's fine for you. But for me, I just want to live a simple life. And if paying $350 a month rent, and I don't have anything breaks, call the landlord, fix it. That's where I am for the rest of my life now. I don't need to be a landlord anymore.
Gotcha.
So Madagascar, as I said, unless you're a citizen, you really can't do anything. You can enter an agreement, leases and whatnot. But it's possible. And the Chinese are doing it, the French are doing it, other nationalities are doing it. So it's possible. And it's
They're
easy
probably
to do.
doing like what you said, the land leases, which is
Then you just want to get an attorney, and you want to make sure you have the land, the title search to make sure the title is clean, just like you would do in the United States.
Exactly.
And same insurance issues and everything. It's no different. The only issue is that until you become a citizen, you can only lease it. You can't own it.
Okay. All right. Let's get to some questions. So I have one here. It'll come across your screen.
Okay. Is vaccine mandatory? Do people drinking magic juice the president praised? Oh, I would run and get a bottle of the CVO, but because of my car accident yesterday, I can't run. I can barely walk. He's talking about the COVID organics. This is this magic juice that our president, Andre Rajoelina, his name is so hard for me to pronounce, Rajoelina, Rajoelina. Um, he touted this as being the magical cure for COVID. And it's a really magical cure for malaria. It works extremely well for malaria, but it doesn't do shit for COVID. So vaccines are not mandatory. Right now, we just hit a threshold. Now, just over 2% of the population is vaccinated. You've probably heard of COVAX, COVAX. That's this nonprofit organization that moves surplus COVID vaccines from countries that don't need it to countries that do need it. And Madagascar is one of those recipients, as you would imagine. My first 2 doses were AstraZeneca, which is not FDA approved, but it is the most widely used vaccination for COVID on the planet. I don't know why it's not in the FDA, but anyway. So I'm AstraZeneca. Right now, everybody who's getting vaccinated, they're getting Johnson and Johnson, whereas the embassy people are getting Moderna. So you don't have to get the vaccine. It's suggested, it's free. If you come to the country, you have to have a PCR test. You have to show that you're vaccinated, and you have to quarantine for a short period of time. But that magic juice, bless his heart, it would have been a game changer for Madagascar if it had only been true.
Okay.
But
All right. Next question. Someone here.
how are schools there for people with school age kids? There are schools everywhere here. There are so many schools. Oh my God. There's the public schools, and then there's a gazillion private schools. And I taught at a private school in Majenga, and I taught in public schools when I lived in Mahambu. Most of the expats put their kids in either British schools or French schools, and there are a couple of American schools that are teach English only. And the tuitions are affordable for expats. But some do put their kids in smaller private schools where they're speaking primarily Malagasy because they want their kids to embrace the Malagasy culture. Education is very important here. And even though it's supposedly free, you still have to buy a uniform, and there's some fees you have to pay. And for people that have a lot of kids, sometimes they can't even afford that. So you see these kids out selling fruits and stuff, and that kind of breaks my heart. I'm starting a nonprofit called Mama Lisa Cares, and one of the long-term goals is to try to get these kids into school and off the street to give them better options for the future. So yes, there are great options all over the country for people with school-age kids. Yeah, here in Majenga, probably the best one that most people do is the French Collège Français. And it's right across the street from where I used to live in Ambujana. It's just 5 minutes from my house here. And it's a French language school. All of my Malagasy friends that have means, their kids go there. We have a lot of French kids, Chinese kids, Malagasy kids, and they have these all over the country. So lots of options for kids, lots of options.
Okay. We have a question here from Blind Guy, his wife, their life.
Great question. Well, I guess really how it is subjective. Um, it's probably going to be Arizona hot. Arizona hot. Yeah.
So
it's
more
not
like the desert heat. Yeah.
It's not up to the 120s or the 110s. I mean, we rarely get into the 100s, but global climate change is changing things. That's why that famine is having such effect in the southeast part of the country, because the global climate change is changing the temperature of the seas, and the fish that the people were relying on are no longer available there. So what was Arizona hot may soon become Texas hot, or even Australia hot. Who knows? And no one's doing anything to fight it.
Yes.
No one in the United States anyway.
Well,
Our leaders.
right. Hey.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question. Mr. More Fortune.
Outside of Malagasy and French, can I get by with English? Yeah, it depends. In Tana, the capital city, you'll probably find more English speakers. Um, it depends. You won't get far. I guess you won't get far. It just depends. But like today, I went to this private clinic with Olivia, and even though my malagasy is decent, we're talking medical terms. I don't know any of those words. So when I go banking or when I go to get medical treatment, I always bring a translator with me. It just makes it so much easier. So a lot of times I can understand what they're saying. Like yesterday when I got hit by that Bajaj, the Bajaj driver and the owners of the Bajaj and the police, everybody, they're standing around, they're talking Malagasy. They're talking so fast, I can't understand anything they're saying. So at one point, I asked my translator, I said, what am I missing? What are we talking about? I said, okay, let me do this. Is what to do, blah, 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 blah. Because when I saw that the owner, this tall, lanky asshole of a brother, was totally dismissing me and Olivia and Yolande, the one woman who was helping me, because we're just women. I called my Malagasy instructor, Angie. I said, Angie, get your ass here. He needs to speak man to man. And as soon as Angie showed up, the whole tenor of the conversation changed. You know, patriarchal, insecure men dealing with women as opposed to dealing with men. It's no different in the U.S. So, yeah, you need to learn yourself some Malagasy. If I was going to start learning Malagasy before I came here, and I'm glad I didn't do it. Because no matter which course you're going to use, it's nothing like the real thing. Example, the way they talk, they like to truncate words. So there's a word, Sakalava Bueni, which is the dialect that I speak here in Majenga. Manduki means to cook. Manduku means to paint. But if you're talking to someone and say, Mila Manduk, it means I need to what? I need to paint, I need to cook, because they cut off that last syllable. So you need to Manduki or Manduku because they just need to Manduk. And they do it all the time. And I'm like, what are you saying? And they do that with everything. They truncate these words. And for someone like me, who's a very visual person, and I'm visualizing these words in my head, and I'm looking for the rest of it. Yeah, so yeah, it's get a tutor, start to learn some Malagasy, much more than French, much more than French. You'd be so much more respected for trying to speak Malagasy than you ever will speaking French.
And I want to say,
Next question.
Lisa, before I put the next question on, is that, sometimes for us, we don't want to learn the language, even though that language can bridge a gap for us across the board. For those of you who are out there and you are not wanting to learn the language because you may find it difficult, nothing in life is going to be easy. If you want it bad enough, go get it. Now, here we go. We have a question here. Mr. Go Black to Africa.
Large presence of Black expats there. No. There is one other sister in Majenga who was Malagasy. She was adopted by a white family and taken back to the States as a young child. And she moved back here as an adult. So she's officially Malagasy, but she's also a U.S. citizen. And so when she had her daughter here, her daughter's also a U.S. citizen, even though she was born in Madagascar. No, there are almost no Black expats here. You have a whole lot of French expats here because it was a French colony, and they like to congregate together and whatnot. And the French come over here with all their white privilege and all their French privilege and all this bullshit, and they expect, you know how the French are. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yes, we do.
I would love to get more Black people here. And another thing that I've thought about doing is creating like a village, an expat village where we've all got, and you've seen these in Ghana and Tanzania, where everybody's got their home or their cottage in a commune. We all got our space, but we're surrounding each other. We're in our little own community. I would love to see that here. That would give us an opportunity to provide English classes and American culture classes, because the locals here are so hungry to learn English idioms, to learn about English food, American food, and they have no knowledge of Black American history. So I teach an English class on Sundays, an advanced English speakers class, and I'm always talking about. The last class we did was the slave narratives, and we were talking about, because they really are not taught much about slavery at all. They don't know about the civil rights struggle. They all saw the George Floyd video, which I haven't seen, by the way, and they see that they think that this is something new. And when I tell them, I said, "Oh, honey, the only thing's new is it's being filmed. This shit's been going on for centuries. We've been hunted, and they're still hunting us." So they are really appreciative to learn this. So if we had some kind of village like that where expats, we could all, get some land and everybody's got their plot and we're all living here together, and we could call it, Africa, American, African, whatever, I don't know what you call it. That would go over very well. That would be so appreciated here because the Malagasy people really love embracing American culture and especially Black American culture. They love
Yes,
it.
yes,
Okay.
I totally agree. More Fortune had a question that you've already answered. More Fortune, you have to go back and watch the beginning of the stream. And she talks about the cost of living and what she pays, etc. Well, Lisa, we are at an hour and 20 minutes. One, I want to thank you for coming on
It's been a pleasure.
and all of this good stuff. Now, Justine has a comment here based off of what you said. So let's put this on the screen real quick before we end.
That's going to be a problem, my sweetheart, because even though the internet is fast here, most people don't have access to it. Remember, I'm living in a luxury apartment, so I can afford the $60 a month for internet in my home. Most people have phones like this, a little dumb phone, and it has internet, but they can't Zoom anything. There's nothing smart. You have to have a smartphone for that. WhatsApp, stuff like that. You have to have a smartphone. So, and then they're using Facebook Lite. They don't even have full Facebook. So, whereas we would love to do stuff like that, we'd have to do it in a place where they could come in to a facility, and we could do that, but it's just got some challenges. I love the idea. And I'm going to run it past some of my Malagasy friends to see what we can do. And then we've got the time difference too, because remember we're East Africa time, and
Right.
we're, I'm 8 hours ahead of the West and 11 hours ahead of the West and 8 hours ahead of the East. So that's always an issue too. Your day is our night, and vice versa. So that's going to be kind of hard. But thank
Yes.
you for the question. Great question.
Great question. So again, I want to thank you for joining me today and giving us your knowledge for all the folks in diaspora who are possibly thinking of just even visiting Madagascar. I say go and visit. Your experience may be different than mine, could be different from hers, even if you decide to move there. But I want to thank my guest, Lisa Lee, for joining us.
Thank
Malagasy
you.
Lisa.
Let me say that
Oh, yeah.
doing is so important. I honor what you're doing. I am constantly encouraging Black people just to leave. The United States is never going to be a safe, nurturing, welcoming place for people of color. It never has been. It never will be. I've given up all hope. And Africa is so warm, so home. There are over 50 nations to choose from. You can find at least one place that you would fit in perfectly, and where your brown skin is actually a bonus. So just walk away. Come home. Africa's calling. Answer the call. Thank you
I
for doing
love
what you
that you
do.
said that your brown skin is a bonus. That is so prophetic. That is so, I love that. I love that. I love that. I love that. I love that.
You
But
feel
yes,
free to use
no,
it.
I'm team black all day and all night. So see, you
Right.
know how that goes.
It's
But
so nice.
definitely there's options for
I
us.
can never. I don't have to ever see another white person again if I don't want to. I know the places that they go. I know the places. If I just avoid those places, I never have to see another white person. It's heaven. It's heaven. Oh
Yes,
my
yes,
God. Because
yes.
they bring that damn privilege with them, and they say, "Oh, we don't have privilege. Fuck you. You don't. You know. Don't."
Hey, hey, hey. Listen, you're 65 and I'm 47. We have the right to drop the bombs how we want to drop them because my mouth is filthy. I just try to be PC a little bit. Okay.
But I like to cuss. Fuck is my favorite word. So, okay, so it's
Yes,
out there.
yes, yes. We're gonna put that on a T-shirt.
Especially since I don't do it anymore for Madagascar.
Yes, 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 yes. So I want to thank you so much, and thank you for everyone for watching. And I am going to take us out. Yes.
Take care.